looking at the wrong item. The February 5th, 2024 Kingston Select Board meeting. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, present selectmen, we have Lori, Select Board member Glenn Koppelman, Electra Alessio, and we have Susan Eyre, our administrator to the Select Board. Charles Hart, again, apologizes for not being here. He's still having some recovery complications from some medical issues. So let's start right off. We have our appointments scheduled. Our first appointment is with our Building and Code Enforcement Officer, Pedro, with the Building Department software. So come on up.
I am the Building Inspector Code Enforcement Officer for the town, and I'm here to present you several options of software for the town. The whole intention is to provide the general public a more transparent view of the town on the process of applying for a building permit, and a more communication, detail-oriented application so that the customer is involved in the whole process while they are looking to seek a building permit. A couple of things of why this came for the conclusion is I provided to you with the Kingston Building and Code Enforcement Department procedures. I created a list of procedure. I won't go over the list due to time constraint, and I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. With all these procedures in mind, and also communications and challenges I have experienced in the department, that's why the software came into play. One of the biggest things is being able to have accountability to the general public. I have questions that I cannot answer because we're either missing information from other department staff or I don't have the complete notion of what's going on. So I would like to be able to provide a really better service to the general community, and I believe the software is the best tool that we can have in order to move these pieces together. Also, in the meantime, before that takes place, I also prepared a new application, and the reason why I came up with this application is because I was seeing general public having issues filling out what was a minor renovation and a major. So I simplified the process, having all the tools that we need to have to make sure that they can go to one stop and still have a complete application. And if you see, it's in a folder type of manner, so they can input application in one file, and we don't have to be using clips and things with the having the opportunity to miss any information. Go ahead.
So instead of having two applications for permits, there's just one? It's
just one, yeah. Right. Yeah, and everything is summarized within that application that I submitted last Friday. Again, it's an effort to start putting all the pieces together for the department to function efficiently, and that we can get really feedbacks going out to the general public in a timely manner. But again, most of the things are not only covered within the application, so that's why, again, we're going to what is the permitting software. With the permitting software, I went through several vendors, and I saw that those software that have a complete set of tools to provide to towns and municipalities, the price tag were very high compared to some software that has the ability to provide all the services that we need to provide within the building department, and at the same time interact with all the department within the town. With that being said, one of the permitting systems that I found that was the most complete was Cloud Permit. They are out of Virginia. I provided these packages, and it is competitive with iWorks, which I understand is currently being implemented in the Department of Public Works. Pricing-wise, This came to be $1,000 more than iWorks, but all the features and tools that this software has, iWorks has, but they are at an additional fee. So the fee that you can see for iWorks does not cover all the tools that this software will be implementing for the town. And one key aspect of them is the interaction with the general public, being able to interact in real time when they submit an application or have a question to the department, being able to interact immediately with the general public, which is a tool that is an amazing service, because the more the general public is aware of what's going on within the process, the less chances are that they're going to feel motivated to come to the town because they don't have the answers they're looking for. So we're providing those answers. On top of that, it will help in the gathering the information for the department for other trades, plumbing, electrical, mechanical inspections. We will be able to have all in one house, and when I am questioned about what's going on with a certain thing or when a certain inspector is going to be in town, I'll have the answer because I will be able to see the live schedule that they will have. Like I said, it's more interactive, it's more transparent, and it gives all the options and tools that are needed for a department to work proficiently and have a direct communication with the general public.
And, so from your investigation, Pedro, you're recommending the cloud permit
Yes.
software, which looks as though it's an initial year charge of $7,000, but $1,000 of that is essentially for setting up,
That is correct.
half of it for building inspection, half of it for code enforcement.
That is correct.
Okay. And you said this is compatible and integratable with iWorks.
It is, so what they can do is, in the event that the town decide to go with this single software as a whole town management tool, they can transfer the data from iWorks with ease, because the developer of iWorks are part of this company. So they went out of iWorks and created this one as a more complete package for the towns.
Okay. And just one more thing for me. I'm assuming that this is a web-based tool that is usable on various devices,
Definitely.
including office and mobile devices?
Yes, definitely. It's a web-based software platform that will enable general public to apply in real time for building permits from any mobile device or their home computers as well. Also, we have a computer down in the department that can be set up so that those individuals that might not have access to a computer can take advantage of that computer and apply for a building permit. And it can be set up in a manner that if they don't have an email address or some sort of computer-based informational software that can render information back and forth or communicate with us, we can have it so that we can communicate with them as immediately as they submit an application via phone call and let them know what is the process and status.
Okay, thank you.
So you answered one of my questions. I just wanted to make sure any software that we do, public would have the opportunity to apply from home. And you said, so they'll be able to kind of see where their permit is.
Yes.
So they could log in and say, hey, it's been submitted for initial review, and
Yes.
guess it needs review from this particular inspector. So it's been forwarded to them. So they'll be able to see what they're waiting on, or will they
Yes.
get notifications that
They
of
will
like
get
when stuff's
notification.
scheduled?
That's correct. They will get notification throughout the process. It will say your application for a new construction has been submitted. X person from the building department has seen the application and forwarded to another person within the department. Once that person in the department do any modifications to the application, it will tell the applicant, your application has been reviewed, this sort of the modification has been made. It has also been referred to an XYZ department that might need to be involved in the process. In this case, might be Department of Public Works or somebody else that will be probably not doing direct involvement with the software manipulation, but it will be able to receive an email saying we have this building permit that requires driveway permit, for example, and the Department of Public Works will be able to email our department saying that we saw the application, we'll be reviewing it, and give us a time frame that we can relay back to the applicant and tell them within this amount of days we should have an application. The software will also create a notation and what they call intelligent object, and that intelligent object will be able to notify the building inspector or the inspector in charge that, hey, the department, it's been 9 days, we haven't received an answer from the department, just call them back, make sure we're still on track, that way we can relate back to the applicant. So those are the tools, like I said, that will help make it more efficient for the department to keep following up with individuals once they submit an application.
And is there ability for this system will they be able to make online payments as well?
As well.
So they could submit the application with the payment, and then if it receives certain amount of inspections, they could say, hey, your permit is complete, but here's your invoice, and as soon as you pay your invoice, it'll say, you can come pick up your permit now?
Actually, they will be able to print it out from home.
Print it, okay.
Yeah, and then it will list out what inspections they will need to call for, and it will give them an estimated idea of when those inspections should happen, because per legislature, all building permits that are approved, they only have a life expectancy or an expiration date of 180 days. And what we want is to make sure that the permit is fully worked. And as an example of that, I just closed on a building permit that was issued on 2017. It was an antenna tower, but again, I didn't have the information, and in order for me to issue the CO, I have to base it on letters that I received and communication that I did with the applicant. These will be eliminated because the software will be able to note all the steps, everything that went through, and when the inspector goes to the site, whatever pictures, whatever failure or violations or anything will be noted, and I will be able to see, well, this inspector said that you didn't pass this violation, which will help in the proficiency of getting the applicant acquainted with, oh, we need to resolve this before we can get the CO, and it will help also in the department communication flow and being able to communicate and relate to the applicant what is missing, what we need in order to make things compliant to code.
Will this new software be able to be integrated with all the files that we had scanned into our computers?
Yes.
Everything is going to be integrated throughout the department, so that someone can look up a property folder, prospective buyer, for example, and
Yes.
see what exists, what permits may or may not be required.
It won't be done within the same software platform. What it will do is we'll create a link that will create a connection to the link, sorry for being redundant, to the link that pertains to that searchable database. So that will be what the department will do. Also the software will integrate pretty well with GIS. We have already GIS, so they tackle on that, then they will be able to see their property and property boundaries for any questions that they might have within the software once they outline.
Will this qualify for ARPA funds?
I think so.
I would think so.
Well,
If the
iWorks did. So I have two questions. So you said it integrates with iWorks. So Public Works just stood up their iWorks. So through the permit process, you said, for instance, Public Works would get a notification that, say for a driveway permit or something like that. So there is connectivity between Cloud Permit and iWorks.
No, it's not. It's gonna be only connectivity to the extent of notifying the department in
Okay.
charge that there is an application that
Okay.
pertains to their review and regulations to follow.
Okay.
And at that point, they will be able to communicate either through the software
Yep.
or directly to the building department. Hey, we have received
Okay.
the application for XYZ, and we're going to be working with them within the next X amount of days and be able to get back. If not, it's something that I will be able to ask and ask them how many days you foresee for this to go through.
My other question is, there's an implementation timeline, and there looks like there's a module for planning department. Did we look at that? What does that, because we're just talking about building
And code enforcement.
So what's the plan, just for my own information?
No, yeah, this is also an opportunity that can be implemented. Right now, the software is only being quoted for building and code enforcement. But if the town so chooses, they can implement also the whole planning department within the software and have the same abilities to communicate as the building and code enforcement.
That's something that we might want to investigate, right?
Like going from 1950 to 2050.
Right, exactly, in one fell swoop.
And so I want to make sure, obviously, I know you said it can migrate stuff from iWork, if we change, but with the Department of Public Works just beginning the implementation, obviously, the plan isn't that doesn't satisfy their needs, and he picked that program specifically for needs of his department. Do we foresee any issues? And I'll open Director of Public Works, if you have any comment, would you see us running these two different platforms? It doesn't seem like I don't know how often you think they cross over in the permitting world of it. I don't think it's a ton. I just want to make sure that if we go down this road, we're not implementing something that just ends up being problematic because the two departments can't really talk to each other like they need to. So, I assume in your head saying you don't anticipate any issues, but
I think the functionality that ours offers versus what he's going for, they're really not going to be any conflict, let alone integration issues. So.
all right, I just want to make sure, like I said, we're not anticipating yours to fail. We're anticipating that it'll satisfy what you need it to do, and we're not already looking to move away from it.
Yeah, I mean, ours is more department specific. It's not, while people have the ability to access it, it's the same thing, it's cloud-based, but there is permitting modules, but it's nothing we're using.
Okay.
Pedro, have you spoken with them about the possibility of perhaps giving us a demonstration of what this is and how it works?
Yes, they are definitely looking forward to one demonstration.
I'd really like to see a demo of it, just to get a feel for how it actually functions.
Possibly maybe just, can we look at the planning department if they're going to give us a demo? Just to see what that is about?
Well, I don't know.
It doesn't mean we have to commit to anything on that portion of it.
doesn't have to
There's a
commit,
more
just-
urgent need for the building, but it would be nice if they're gonna come in and give a demonstration and just, from some things that we've learned over this year as well, in order for us to enter into a multi-year contract.
Yeah.
We need to make sure there's language in our contract that essentially we can, as a select board, we can engage into the first year of a multi-year contract, but there needs to be language in there that states, contract only continues into the years if the townsfolk votes on the next year's approved budget that contains the line item of it. So it's a nuance that we've been learning about over the past year or so of just some issues that have come up.
Do we want to have a demonstration during the department head meeting during the morning so that more participation even from community members?
I mean, because there
something
are,
to think about anyways.
at the very least, I'd like the demonstration to contain all the building inspectors and then the fire
Yes,
department who
right.
is
That's
connected to
correct.
permitting
Yes.
as well, and then make it available to, I don't think we need to make it, because it's the end of the month before we're gonna have a department head meeting again. I wouldn't mind just scheduling some time in one of our future meetings to have the inspectors show up with planning. Yeah, okay, yeah, I guess it's pretty close.
And planning, right? So we're saying, we're not committing to planning, but just if they're gonna come out to do a demo, they might as well show us what that means. Yeah, what that looks like, okay.
Yeah, so I don't think we want to take any formal action tonight, but we'd like if we can get set up a demonstration so we can get all the involved partners involved that it could apply to.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
Pedro, thank you for putting this together so quickly. We know you've only been working for 2 weeks now, and this is great.
Yeah, the procedures and
great.
everything is fantastic, so thank you very much.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, our second appointment this evening is with Attorney Pat. Somebody want to give me the name? Before I butcher it?
Panciocco.
Panciocco?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Pat, This is reference potential building on 49 Back Road, currently a Class 6 road, and this involves map R42, lot number 5. And I know we did receive a letter from the attorney that's in our packets that we had an opportunity. We didn't get this until probably Friday, I think, for the board members. And so really, I don't think a lot of folks have had a time to digest it, so we may not have answers to all the questions you have tonight. So
That's fine.
But if you'd like to go ahead and open up, and I'll let you have the floor and kind of explain where you're at and why you're here and what the board needs to consider.
Okay, thank you. My name is Pat Panciacco. I'm an, is it? Okay. My name is Pat Panciacco. I'm an attorney out of Bedford. I'm here with my client, John Hartwell, and Jeff Murphy from SFC Engineering. He's here to answer any questions the board may have. But we're here just to preliminarily explore with the board what the process is to obtain a building permit for this lot at 49 Back Road in the town of Kingston. As you can see by the maps that I sent over, this property is a little closer to Danville than it is to the main roads in Kingston. And we've done a lot of homework in looking into this. We have met with the town of Danville, the road agent, the fire department, and the planning board, and we've also met with the road agent, my client has, and the fire department in this town. And we're looking to simply explore what the process might be for my client to be able to build a single-family home for his family on this particular parcel of land. So that is why we were here. I listed several questions that came to mind. I understand if you don't have answers to all of them, but to the extent you do, we're anxious to hear from the board because we know the board is in charge of town roads. So with that said, that's the reason why we're here.
So, and it was it your office that also submitted the previous meeting minutes where there was the discussion of a Class 6 road, or was that? Okay, that's Susan.
No.
Okay.
No.
So I just do want to, our administrator in preparation for this meeting just did look up some meetings of the last time somebody had engaged with building on a Class 6 road, and it looks like, in case you want to look it up, it's we can give you a copy before you leave here this evening.
That would be
looks
great.
like the meeting minutes of September 21st, 2020 of the Kingston Select Board. And the appointment would have been under Barry and Gail Phillips, reference 19 Farm Road. So it looks like there was, they were requesting some process and guidance or approval to build on a Class 6 road. And, citing RSA 674-41. I just want to, it looks like they did go before the town for a variance to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and they were denied the variance, and then they came before the Select Board. So just a couple of the items that are in the official meeting minutes from that is that at the time, the chairman of the board did state that several others had come before the front of the board in recent years and have been denied permits unless the road was converted to Class 5. He said that time the board had taken this position due to the risk of legal liability. And then there was just some discussion about difference between Class 5, Class 6 roads. But I just wanted to make you aware that we did look at this document, in preparation for tonight's meeting, if you wanted to research that. I know Selectman Koppelman also did provide the board some references on, planning and zoning under the RSAs that govern that, as well as some information that this one came from Drummond and Woodsum legal counsel, and this was a packet on the development of Class 6 roads and private roads. So I just want to make you aware of any documents that we were looking at when we kind of took this under advisement.
No, I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
So, during my shorter tenure on the board, I have not experienced an application such as this for the building on a Class 6 road. I know, Ellie, you were here present for that previous one. Glenn, I'm not sure what experience you may have had previously with the planning board, if anything came along these lines.
Some exposure with planning board, but also with other towns that I work with, and dealing with issues coming before the town of building on a Class 6 road, or requests to build on a Class 6 road. I've not been sitting at this board for any of those items that have come to Kingston. You have, Ellie.
Yeah, that was the one time when the Phillips came before us.
Okay, thank you.
Since he is to invite the Director of Public Works up, he was on that select board at the time, and then obviously he is our Director of Public Works, and that blanket falls under what would used to be a road agent position, so I'm sure he probably has some input that could help guide us. Yep.
As I explained to your client on numerous occasions, the only way that could be a single-family home built on that lot is if the road is brought to Class 5 standards, which is a 60-foot right-of-way and a New Hampshire DOT spec paved road. That's it.
That was it?
That's it.
Okay.
Now, just looking through some of these RSAs and stuff like that, is that because that's the position the town has traditionally taken, or are there other options that the town has if they wanted to look at those?
The only other option is if a warrant article were put before the voters to convert the road to a Class 5 road, for us to incur the cost.
So while I have you up here,
So just as background on that, if we grant this, anybody with a lot on that Class 6 road can now apply for a building permit and put a house on there. And within short order, the town will be on the hook to put a road in there. And I think when this came up previously, the cost of that was well north of $2 million. And prices have only gone up in that time. So I don't think that's a burden that anybody wants to put on the town.
Chris, I've been here long enough. When we bought our house, it was a dirt road, and our neighbors actually had to chip in together to get it brought up to standard, to get it approved by the town, and then went before the town at a warrant to accept Thayer Road and a few others in my neighborhood as Class 6 roads. So that was the procedure, and that has been the case for at least 40, 50 years that I'm aware of.
Okay, so I'd like to throw a couple of things out. First of all, we're not asking for the town to incur any of the burden, so I'll put that right out there. There is a mechanism. It does not have to come up to Class 5 for him to be able to get a permit. There are several options available. They do require further input, and I can see that Member Coppola there is familiar with these. To secure the permits, to upgrade the road sufficiently for his own access with a written indemnification for the town for any liability incurred for his accessing his property over the road. And that's very commonly done in many municipalities. It does not have to come up to Class 5 road, and quite frankly, I don't think that would be in the best interest of the town, simply because there's not enough land out there available to justify the expense that you'd incur to maintain the road. Because if it does come up to Class 5, the town is maintaining it, and that's not what we're here to ask about. We would like to explore the process under 674-41, work with the road agent and the fire department to come up with an acceptable access standard, if you would, for the road for him to be able to reach his lot. Now, because his lot is in Kingston, we have to come to Kingston first. But in all honesty, if you look at the map, the shorter access is through Danville. So that's an option also. We also realize there is a lot of conservation land out there, and I mean, what good is conservation land if people can't reach it? But we understand a Class 5 road is a burden for the town. So with that said, from the selectmen, we would only be looking for permission to be able to make those improvements to accommodate safe access as if it was a driveway to my client's lot within the road right-of-way. And the town would be fully indemnified from any liability for any losses or injuries for the use of the road by my client. So it's really just to be able to utilize the space within the right-of-way proper. So under 67441, the statute contemplates input from the planning board as to what's an acceptable standard, with town departments also weighing in. Once a standard is determined and my client agrees to meet that standard, of course you do need a variance from the zoning board of adjustment. We comply with zoning, with the exception of the frontage being on a Class 6 road, but that's a hardship per se. And we're not looking to shift that burden on the town at all. So that's the reason why we're here. Most towns have a policy in place that you have to get all these parts and pieces pulled together to be able to apply for the permit. So that's what we were hoping to explore, but without the Board of Selectmen's permission, that if we're successful, that we could make the improvements, we're nowhere right now. But that borders on denying him a reasonable use of his property. So we're looking to forage a mechanism here, step by step, to move forward with our plan.
Okay. Well, you've said a lot of stuff.
I did. Yes.
I guess a question first. As you've identified, the longer part of the distance to get to the property is on the Kingston side.
Yes.
So if you were to be able to go forward with this, would you be proposing to upgrade the section in Kingston or the section coming in from Danville to the lot?
So the initial response, I would say, would be Danville. However, we haven't done the extent of research and otherwise through permitting to find that is feasible due to wetlands and otherwise until we had some progress here.
Okay, so I suspected that's what you were going to say, because if it were me, I'd certainly want to be building or improving the roadway at the shorter distance as opposed to the longer distance. But if you do that, all of your emergency services and support services are still going to be coming from Kingston, which means that we'd be traveling over the unimproved road. And I'd be hard pressed to support that.
So I guess that we're kind of looking at as stage 2 on the actual plan. Right now, we're trying to identify what the path is to creating that plan. We have met with emergency departments from both towns to talk about their mutual aid and, the other details of that. However, it's, again, until we have the path of how to propose that plan, who to meet with, how to include those items to then be able to propose a consolidated plan, we really don't have those answers yet. We've had initial discussions with both, fire departments, because usually those pieces of equipment dictate the next steps. And essentially, we've gotten certain levels of buy-in to understand that. But, from this history, as you guys have done some research, I've been looking at this for 2 years, understanding these pieces, I think the first step is identifying that there is a process to have proper involvement from the boards leading up to that final sign off, however that looks like, because it doesn't seem there's been a lot of, in the other examples, I didn't see a lot of depth of response from, because it wasn't seeming like a feasible plan. So we're trying to make sure, identify the right path. If there is, an organized manner, and how do we, educate ourselves and the rest to create the plan and then go through those boards. And that's kind of why we haven't finished those pieces.
Okay, so as Attorney Panciaco mentioned, the RSA calls for consultation and discussion with planning board before the select board action.
Yes.
And so I'd like to know if you have discussed this with the planning board.
Not yet. We have not gone that far. We thought it would behoove us to talk to the people in charge of the roads first, but we're happy to do that and explore that and see what he's proposing to improve is a driveway. Oh dear.
I'm getting reports this morning.
Thank you. So he's looking to build a driveway within the road right-of-way, but he also understands that it has to accommodate emergency vehicles, much as like it is when the fire department approves a driveway that's very long into somebody's property. As to the meeting minutes that you mentioned, I do recall reading those some time ago. I don't know what kind of research was done prior to them going to the board. My client and his engineer have done a tremendous amount of research and meeting with people to see what the issues are. And each piece of property is unique. Every situation is different. So we're open to any suggestions the board has. We're willing to go to the planning board and speak with them. I think they've already met with you, haven't they? And they've met with the fire chief, and those are, I think, the people who have a say here.
Well, how much of that land is buildable? I mean, we got a lot of conservation land in that area, I believe.
He owns 10 acres?
Yes,
It's
10
buildable.
acres.
It's quite buildable.
With a lot of wetlands?
There is some on the property, yeah.
It's 10 acres, so. No, I understand that, but I think you've done the research, right?
Sure, yeah, I mean, essentially you could, I'm looking for a single-family house, there was well ample space for that. You could do multiples, you could do, other things with it, but, kind of limited it to the fact that it's clearly buildable for the one-family home we're looking to
Right.
put there at this time. Yeah, I go there now,
And technically, he has access physically over a Class 6 road, but not for purposes of building without satisfying the requirements of the town.
So I guess my opinion is, I'm never a huge fan of the mentality of, we've always taken the stance. If there are legal mechanisms in place to at least open up the discussion,
Yes,
I'm not
there
opposed to that. But I can tell, I've been out on this property just a handful of times, and especially that far down, I seem to remember like a large beaver dam that's like above the grade of the road out in that area. So I think that could be problematic, especially from a conservation point. But I don't mind opening up the mechanisms that would allow these discussions to take place, but I just want to caution you that the restrictions or requirements that may be required to make it happen could be so cost prohibitive, or that I don't, if the board felt comfortable even going down that road, I just don't want to create that false sense of, yep, this is going to happen, and then, oh, they took it away from us at the last minute to punish us. And
No.
I have no problem, especially looking through that RSA 67441, but I want to, under this legal advice, one of the bullets on here is, remember, property access is not guaranteed, but I would really be hesitant to just say, nope, I'm not even going to allow the discussion to happen if there was a mechanism in place for it to happen. So that's my feeling on it. If there's a legal avenue, we can to explore it, but I also share the Director of Public Works concerned, you know, if we encounter it, obviously, if somebody's granted access there, I'm sure everyone that owns a large parcel of land out there is gonna be like, great, we're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna do kind of the driveway mentality and build some homes out there. And just like every development that starts out as a private road, once the people finally, you know, the developer says, we promise it'll never be a town road, never be a town road. And then once people have moved in and they're paying taxes, they're like, well, why isn't my road a town road and paved and maintained and all those sorts of things? So there's definitely cautions that need to be taken and the town needs to be aware of, but I'm not opposed to opening the door for discussion.
That's really what we're looking for, Mr. Chairman. We're not looking for guarantees. We're not looking to impose any burdens on the town at all. And we're certainly not coming in here asking you to make promises to us, because we understand it's a complex process. That is a very long statute too to digest, as I'm sure you've seen.
I know I only have a touch of it.
It is, and I think Member Koppelman has probably dealt with it before. So there are some hoops to jump through, but you really are the gatekeeper, and that's why we're here first before any other board.
Well,
Yeah,
I
Glenn was
have to
gonna
tell
ask.
you that from my own personal experience with this, you're right, this board is where you should come, and you did. I'm gonna be a tough nut to crack on this. I really am. I would be hard pressed to move forward with this without him bringing it up to town standards. So at least, and unfortunately, because the longest distance is in Kingston, and the Kingston support services would be the ones required to support that lot, it's a very long distance, and I understand and I understand why you don't want to do it. It's going to cost a lot of money, probably prohibitively
Could be.
large amount of money. But as the chairman said, you know, I think the board needs to have the discussion about it and debate it. But with me, you're starting from a position of I would say, challenging.
Okay, fair. And there is a fine line there, because if you get into Class 5 standards too deeply, then it becomes yours to maintain, and that's not something we're looking to do here. So I do believe there's been some discussion with Director of Public Works and the Fire Chief as to what would be a satisfactory level of improvement to accommodate safely, without injury, the town's equipment, if indeed someday the fire department were ever called out there. So that's been the guide for the most part in accessing these lots. I tend to think that because I have so many people inquiring about these recently, that it's largely due to the pressure that there's really nowhere to build homes anymore. Not in this case, but in many cases, people, there's just nowhere else to go, and we have a huge need for housing. So I think that's exerting a little bit of pressure on this area, but we're not looking to skip the formalities that must be met to reach this goal, if they can be met
Sure.
at a feasible level.
Sure. And I understand your comment about if it's brought up to town standards, then the town becomes responsible for maintaining it. That's all well and good for you to say that, but that's really the town's decision to.
I understand.
To, you know, if we're gonna mandate that, we have to understand that it would then be our responsibility to take care of it. Yeah.
Right, we're looking for a reasonable middle ground, I think, but not looking to expose the town's equipment to any kind of damage or risk.
Yeah.
I think part of the conversation too, so I've owned this for a couple of years, spent a lot of time validating that this is a community that we'll bring my family to, starting to understand, making sure we have all parties and, you know, involved, what, you know, the guidelines they're looking for, what, you know, what reasonable means of access or restrictions, and why they're there. Part of the reason we're talking about more as a driveway access or otherwise was part of the concern being that becoming a town road, maybe working with this group and other boards to identify a means for reasonable access and getting to a building permit, and potentially avoiding that becoming brought in as a town road due to some other restrictions. Otherwise, it may help the town as a whole not be concerned that that be pulled in. Things of that nature that we haven't gone down the avenue, but that's some of the reasons we were talking through. We want to help the town. We were trying to understand the concern. Previous, examples or otherwise have been pulled in the concerns from that. So that's part of what we're trying to establish is how we can work together to identify something, if possible, to make it work for, obviously up my goals, what I'm looking forward to with getting within the box of what would satisfy and work well with the town.
I don't have any objection to at least getting to the planning board stage and talking with them as you talk with some of the other boards. I guess I'm reticent more because of the long-term impact. You might be the greatest guy going, and everything goes easy and smoothly and safeguards in place, and you turn around, sell the property, and you get some banana head that comes in. I mean, it happens all the time.
It does.
I mean, that's been our experience, so we're a little bit gun-shy, to be very honest with you. In making exceptions to the rule. There's a reason why you have the rules, and believe me, those of you that know me, they know I like to make exceptions, but I'm not, roads are a different ballgame because it opens up a panoply of concerns.
Would it be helpful to the board if we were able to gather up some of the policies from surrounding towns, just to kind of give you an example of what this looks like? I don't know.
It wouldn't hurt, but I tell you, Kingston kind of does its thing.
Okay.
And, they have a very strong conservation commission that is, making sure that the town holds to certain standards. And I just will caution you, the planning board traditionally has taken the stance of even private developments that promise they're going to remain private roads. They've required them to build them to town standards because they know that all it takes is a citizen's petition warrant article, and then the town owns it, and then the town has to bring it up to that standard.
Yes, and that does happen, you're absolutely right. But most towns do now, Mr. Chairman, require roads be built to town standards, whether they're private or public, because road maintenance, as you say, it's very costly.
And we do that in town, if I recall, from my time on planning board, is that even on private roads, they're built to town standard with even if they're not town roads to begin with, as the chairman said, they can eventually become town roads, and we certainly don't want to have to rebuild them at that point.
Director of Public Works, you look like you had another comment to jump in with.
I don't know how many times we have to learn the lesson. There are numerous roads along the lake that used to be seasonal cottages and now are my nightmare every time it snows because they're not wide enough, and there's 5 generations of families living in a house with 1 bedroom. It's never intended to be anything beyond just what one person's intent is. This is just a seasonal cottage, and it's not going to be anything else. This is just a private road. It's not going to be anything else. At the end of the day, I can tell you consistently who the one holding the bag is. It's the town of Kingston. And the policies that we've reiterated time and time again on Class 6 roads are born from those experiences. Us left holding the bag on these things. And my predecessor, as well as I, feel that this needs to be brought to the town standards that have been in place since the early 70s. Because on those, the town learned again and again, if they weren't at those standards, we don't have room for utilities, we don't have room for drainage, we don't have room to do any of the things that we need to do. As you said, Ellie, one person can move in there and have one intent, and then it's over after that. It's open season, and it just repeatedly harms the town. I would much rather a road be built to town standard and I have to plow it every storm with one house at the end of it than have to go in there and constantly upgrade it and fix it slowly without a budget to do it, because someone down there suddenly has MS and they have to have the ambulance show up every other weekend.
But that denies him the reasonable use of his property. It is a balance, and I understand.
But he was aware it was on a Class 6 road when he purchased the property.
That's not dispositive of his rights to use it. And that's clear, so.
I agree that may be the resolution that comes to task between them, but I think that's a decision to be made. We can't just close the door on the conversation for people if there's a mechanism in place with state law. We can't hold everyone responsible for the sins of their fathers. And I get it. The town's been screwed and caught up in it many times, but if there's a mechanism in place that illegally allows the talk to happen, I think we owe it to any landowner in town to at least have that discussion.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go meet with the planning board and get on the agenda and see what they have to offer, and perhaps,
Is that a consensus of the board? That
is that a good choice? And get some feedback there, and then perhaps circle back.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. And as to some of the questions, I don't know who would be able to help out with those, but if there are any answers, we'd love to have them.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask, I was going to ask if the Director of Public Works could see those and if he has some answers to those, and we'll kind of ask around some other folks in town.
Can we answer it now?
If you have answers to.
Who owns a piece of property on there and has owned it since the early 60s. It has been a Class 6 road through that entire time.
Since the 60s?
Yes. The town
But-
has not done any maintenance on that road except for one time where a beaver dam washed out a culvert. And then, of course, when your client went out there and
But
turned it
fixed
into
it.
fixed it.
But is there a vote that reclassified? It was really the first question. Oftentimes, there's a vote at town meeting.
There is not.
There is not.
There is not one that is recorded.
Okay. Not recorded. Is that in the town warrant? Is
Well, I
that what you
wasn't
mean?
there, so the only thing I can
I am
offer is the
sure.
recorded. The record that I was able to search
Okay.
did not have that. I was
Okay.
only able to find 2 roads that had been reclassified at town meeting, and this was not one of them.
Okay, okay,
With regards to the formal policy regarding the issuance of building permits, it's that it's brought up to Class 5 standards, meeting the current town standards. That's at least the unofficial policy, as
that's
I
the
understand.
unofficial one,
Yes.
okay.
I think number 3 has been answered.
Yep,
Are there other
That's a
homes
question.
in Kingston with lots with frontage along Class 6 roads? Yes, there is one on Back Road, right at the very end there, but they also have a driveway off of a Class 5 road on McMillan Road.
okay,
The other one would be off of Tucker Road, but Tucker Road, the part of their frontage that is on a Class 6 road, their driveway is on the Class 5 portion of that road.
okay.
The Board of Selectmen has not approved building permits for other Class 6 roads recently. In fact, just since 2017, we've denied 4 of them.
Okay. All right,
The only thing I think that could be an exception to that, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure if we allowed a lower standard to be built for the solar array off of Mill Road, because a section of that may have been Class 6. But the only reason I believe it was authorized is due to the fact that it wasn't being occupied. There was no residences out there. It just needed for vehicles to go out and, check the panels and be able to gain access. But there were provisions in there for the width of even a fire truck if it had to put out a fire. There's turnarounds in place, and there was a significant standard that it was still held to, even though there was going to be nobody occupying a residence out there.
that's good to know.
And I believe that property actually butts to the Class 5 portion of it where the pavement ends.
Okay.
That's actually where their property starts.
Okay. And the process to be determined, if at all. How's that? Okay.
And just on this, but, so I'm not going to open it up for public comment to get into any sort of debate, but if there's anyone here that wants to comment on this during public comment, they will be welcome to do so, but it's not a public hearing, so I'm not opening up for that.
Okay,
Just FYI, that public comment period opens up after the next appointment.
okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We have one more appointment, and then there'll be public comment, so, but if you want to comment on that one, you absolutely can. Okay, our next appointment is with Frederick and Lisa Korn, 5 Exeter Road, map R34, lot 63. We received a letter from Realtor in the packets, and Pedro, our code enforcement, is also aware of this, and he may be speaking to this as well. So Pedro, if you want to come up and sit on the side here or that side, whichever one works for you. Probably, I guess one with a microphone would be better. 50-50, always the other one. All right, so
Evening. Joseph Nichols, Nichols Environmental. I'll be representing Rick and Lisa Korn of the property of 5 Exeter Road. So there was a letter that I did verify in the town record of September 17th, 1988, reads Briggs property, R34, lot, it's kind of hard to read, it's kind of faded, 63. Height, water table, a narrow lot, couldn't meet septic requirements because of house on either side. And it says reconsideration on the bottom of it. There are no findings of any reports by any wetland scientists on, or any logs of any test pits that were witnessed by the town at all. I mentioned that to the client, so we did a little bit more research and started moving forward with the project. Looked at the NWI maps and the town GIS maps. There are no wetlands located anywhere near this property. Which I have a copy of that right here. You can see this is the property here. The closest one would be this one up in here, which is a small wetland piece. So we hired John P. Hayes III. He's a certified soil scientist, certified wetland scientist out of Northampton. He went and did a site evaluation for any possible wetlands on site on September 12th, 2023. I'll read that. Dear Joe, this letter is to report the results of a site evaluation for wetlands that was performed by John P. Hayes on the above mentioned property on September 12th, 2023. The parcel is located in the southwest side of Exeter Road and northeast of Route 125 in Kingston, New Hampshire. Size of the lot is 0.53 acres. The result of the evaluations were that no wetlands or areas of poorly drained soil were found on the lot or within 100 feet of any of the property boundary lines. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or if I can be any further assistance. John P. Hayes, CSS, CWS. So with that finding and verification, we also looked at some abutting septics the town engineer had done at number 9 Exeter Road, which I have a copy of, and number 3 Exeter Road, which are abutting parcels. We looked at some of the test pit results before we move forward, to see if there are any indications of a high water table out there. Number 3 Exeter Road, which is located to the right of the property, was a seasonal high water table of 52 inches with a perk rate of 2 minutes per inch. It's a Windsor soil, which is a decent soil. So the next one, which is to the left of the property at 9 Exeter Road, that was done by Civil Construction Management, Inc., showed there being a 48-inch water table with a 3 minute per inch perk rate, which was also a Windsor soil, which is consistent across all 3 parcels. We put an application into the town to do test pits with the town witness. The health inspector was out there. We dug 2 test pits, one in the front, one in the middle. Test pit number 1 had a 30-inch water table, 4 minute per inch perk rate. Test pit number 2, which was in the middle of the property, is a 26-inch water table, and it's 4 minute per inch perk rate. It's also Windsor soil, so it's consistent with the same findings as the abutting properties. We did the existing conditions survey from there. We verified that we met all the town setback requirements, as well as any of the other abutting setback requirements. There's no wetlands within 100 feet of any of the property. We meet the property line setbacks for driveway, building, and septic. We meet the well requirements. We do have an undersized lot, so it is restricted down to 2 bedrooms versus the standard new subdivision lots are all sized for 4 bedrooms. But whereas a half an acre, it is restricted to a 2-bedroom due to lot loading. We did move forward and got a driveway DOT permit that was issued by New Hampshire DOT because it is on a DOT right-of-way road. And based on our findings in our documentation, the town of Kingston approved the septic design, as well as the New Hampshire DES has approved the septic design with no waivers. It meets all the requirements of the town. So we're asking to repeal that original letter that was done in 1988 with comments of a high water table, because it does meet the town's minimum 24-inch seasonal high water table. And it is a narrow lot, but it is restricted to 2 bedrooms, and it does meet the setbacks, so it is buildable. So we ask that you consider to repeal the letter that was done in 1988 and approve it as a buildable lot.
It's restricted to 2 bedrooms because of the septic system size that you can put on there? Or-
Because of the size of the lot and the soil type on it. It's called lot loading. It takes in consideration the soil type and takes in consideration the amount of soil minus the well radius out, because they have to be able to prove that they can treat the effluent on site. So in 1988, there weren't the newer systems that we have now, which are smaller footprint. There was a stone and pipe system. I mean, this is a raised mound system because there is a 26 and 30-inch water table, so it will be raised because it's in the aquifer as well, which requires it even higher than state standards. So back in the day, it would have been a stone and pipe system, which would have been a lot larger system. They didn't have the prior newer systems such as the EnviroSeptic, is which we designed, so we're able to get the footprint size down and meet the setback requirements.
And you said it meets the lot setback?
Correct.
Of 20 feet, I believe?
20 feet, yep,
For all components?
correct, yep.
Okay. And there isn't a well on the site yet?
There's a well that's going to be proposed to the rear of the property. It meets the requirements of New Hampshire DES and town standards.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
So I guess what's the mechanism, what's the mechanism in place that a board declared it unbuildable, and what is there that allows them the authority to say that if standards change, it's that forever?
Well, we're gonna have to go through a lot of lots, because most of them are on, those that are designated as unbuildable have been taxed as unbuildable as opposed to buildable. So that opens up a whole panoply of issues right there. You could put the well in now, am I correct? You get an approved well on that site, you can't
Yeah,
put a house there, but
you could put the well in, you could put the septic in. It's all approved, state and town approved, the well and septic locations.
Okay.
So it meets all those standards.
Is this on the left side heading towards Exeter?
It's on the right-hand side, just before the entrance to Magnuson Fields.
To the right of Magnuson.
It abuts the driveway to Magnuson.
Okay, because there was a couple new houses that went up there.
I have a question on the submission that your surveyor did
Yep.
for the well protective radius. He didn't make a demarcation, a notation showing an 100-foot protective radius for number 9, yet he only shows 75-foot protection for lot number 3. If he makes it 100, that will encroach into your leach field.
Yep.
Which at that point, we might be needing to discuss how you plan to protect
Yep.
the well from that neighbor next door to you.
So their well does not meet the town standards, and there's a protective well release form that's recorded and signed right here. I have a copy of it, which is on both of the plans and the approved septic plan. And that's why we're allowed to go to the state minimum 75. Technically, we can bypass that altogether and actually put the leach field inside. And I'll read actually the standards of it. This was recorded for their well location because it's a non-conforming well location. I understand that my well will be located closer than the recommended extent of a protective well radius on my property line, 75 feet for up to 750 gallons per day, which is a 5-bedroom requirement, if a dug shell or drilled well. I understand that the current state law does not protect my well beyond the boundary of my property, and that rules of the Department of Environmental Services allow a leach field to be installed as close as 10 feet, which Kingston's 20, to the property line, which may result in a leach field on an abutting property being installed closer than 75 feet from my well. I understand that I cannot prevent a leach field from being installed on a abutting property within 10 feet of the property boundary solely on the basis of my well location. I understand that with proper well construction, including drilling into the bedrock, casing the well, and sealing the casing, the risk of contamination from any leach field closer than 75 feet to my well can be minimized. I understand that I have no cause of action against the state of New Hampshire or any owner of the abutting property if my well becomes contaminated as a result of decreased setback distance. Owner's signature is Susan Slocum, 9/27 of 17. So because her well is non-conforming and she does record this well release, then she has no right to be able to impact our property. We do hold this, we could have actually put the septic closer to that side. We issued to hold the state 75 and actually adhere to that and keep it meet the state standards.
Perfect. And then it is my understanding that you mentioned that you'll have a 30-inch depth of foundation prior to hitting any type of water tables?
Correct, there's a seasonal high water table that was 30 inches, which we designed over. There was one to the rear, or towards the middle of the property, which was 26. There was observed water table at 48 in test pit number 1, which is the one we designed over, and observed at 43 in the middle of the lot.
Then my question becomes, how are you planning, or are you going to be able to achieve proper frost protection for your foundation once you start building your
Yep.
structure?
Yeah, you'll be able to, because we're gonna have to raise everything up, but you're gonna have to do a footing. It's gonna be a drive under garage, 4-foot frost wall footing.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Perfect.
So I guess, regarding the legality of the designation, I understand you have some concerns, but, if other properties changed, but they would have, they would have to bring them forward. But I can't see us not, I guess, going through I just don't understand how they could have issued something that would be binding and granted that it's based on the condition that it must meet all current legal standards for issuance of building septic setbacks and town standards, or town and state standards.
This situation stands on its own, no question about it. I'm not familiar with ever changing an unbuildable to a buildable, and I'm not sure what the right way is. Right. To be very honest, I think we need to check with council to make, because I don't want to take away any rights to Mr. Korn. By the same token, I don't want to mess up anything from Kingston either, so.
I believe it's up to you guys to be able to repeal the original settings based on facts and findings of the approved plans by the town of Kingston and New Hampshire DES.
We probably have that authority, but do we want to take any action before we check with council and maybe even our town engineer?
I would prefer to consult first and then make a decision. We can make a decision next Monday, just postpone it until next Monday night.
Are you saying that we should consult with our town engineer as well as council?
That would be my suggestion. I believe that one of the plans that the gentleman referred to, two of them, were done by our town engineer. So he clearly has a lot of familiarity with this, and he has the expertise, and I would much rather hear it from him.
Have eyes on and make sure.
No offense.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
No. And I suspect that he will be very supportive
Dennis,
of his work and of the data that you're presenting, but I'd like to hear it from him.
Yeah, I guess I don't mind holding it up for legal but I mean, the town engineer, they're gonna have to meet whatever the standards are anyway. And so my concern is just the review of the legal, and I'd even be comfortable with making a motion to revoke it with we'd make the motion, and that was contingent upon our town legal blessing, so that so if we can send that out to town council this week, say, hey, this is what we have, this is the motion we made with the contingency that you say that, yes, we have the legal authority and it's appropriate to do it, and then we could just tell them that town council has vetted this so they can continue on with whatever measures they're looking to do. So I'll go ahead. So I'll make the motion that we repeal the previous designation of an unbuildable lot with the conditions that any building or activity taking place will conform to current town state standards for septic, building, or any other provisions that are necessary. And this approval is based on the final review of our town council, and then us notifying you that approval from town council has been received.
Sure.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you very much.
No, I'm not opposed, but I am going to abstain because I really would like to hear from our town engineer. And
So, also, Glenn, the town health inspector who will witness the test pits and also reviews all your septic plans for town regulations has stamped the plan. So you're aware.
understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we will open it up now to public comment number 1, and just so you know, it can be on, if you have comment, you can comment on something that's already been on one of the previous appointments. Public comment number 1. Yes, please.
All right, can you hear me okay? Okay. I just had a couple of comments about Mr. Hartwell's property from conservation's point of view. He asked me before he bought the property about the property, and I let him know that it was full of wetlands and vernal pools and buffers. He knew that coming into it. As far as the Class 6 road, you're right. That on the Kingston end, in the springtime, it's completely flooded by the beaver dam. I mean, to where you have to go completely around the Salt property to get to the other end. It's not easy to get around that. There's a large wetland complex. On the Danville end, there's an even larger wetland complex that also becomes flooded. On the Kingston end, I have personally seen and photographed several Blanding's turtles. As you know, those are endangered species. It just took us a year to get a permit from Fish and Game and DES to put a culvert the size of that rug under a little walking trail because of possible Blanding's turtles in the area. And in this area, they're well documented. So I not only that, but I looked it up, and it is on our wildlife action plan for Kingston, which is posted downstairs on the wall. That whole area is considered highest ranked habitat in the region and surrounded by highest supporting landscape. It's also part of the Connect the Coast endeavor. You can't see it well. I didn't have a chance to copy these, but this whole area is in red, and as part of the Connect the Coast endeavor that was instituted by Nature Conservancy. So in other words, it's full of conservation restrictions that is going to be really difficult to get around. So I just kind of wanted the Board of Selectmen to know that.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, and I agree there's probably going to be a lot of issues for them, but like I said, the one thing I don't ever want to do is just close the door on somebody of exploring a legal possible use, especially when it comes to land.
Yeah, but conservation is going to be hard pressed to approve any plans for building out there, and they may never get a DES permit. So, okay.
Public comment. Just hit the button once so it's green, and just please state your name and your residence.
My name is John Radigan. I work with Donahue, Tucker, and Shindella. I am an attorney representing lots of municipalities. And today I am here on behalf of Southeast Land Trust, and this is Deborah Gord. The Southeast Land Trust, as the conservation member just expressed, is very concerned about how this land could interfere with the conservation easements that are subject to probably about, it looks like about 60% of the land that's out along the road. And I understand that there's a lot of municipal residential recreational use out there, and of course that would go away if it's upgraded into a different type of road. And then it's my understanding also that the applicant had sought a variance and it was denied. And if you don't have a variance where the ordinance, it's my understanding that the ordinance expressly states that there needs to be 200 feet of frontage on a public road, which is described as a road between the class 1 to class 5, and it does not include class 6 roads. So if they don't have that variance and haven't appealed that variance, this simply can't proceed. So I think that there are very strong arguments, in support of doing this, and a lot of them have to do with public safety. I've come up at this issue with many municipalities who, as the board has already discussed, once in a while, if there is going to be residential occupancy out on a road, it needs to be improved to the municipality's suitable class 5 standards, because we need public safety to be able to get in and out of there if needed. And in the absence of that, it creates a terrible thing if public safety can't get in and out of there, and then bad things happen to the people, who need that assistance. So I think that if there was ever going to be residential use out there, it would absolutely have to be contingent on having an upgraded paved road. And it sounds, given the wetlands that are out there and the other descriptions we've heard, that would be a very difficult thing to acquire. And, for instance, I've seen instances where there are municipalities on roads that, don't have a cul-de-sac at the end of the road so that the vehicles can safely turn around. They have to have a specialized, safe driveway put in for the vehicles to turn around, and that would be inconsistent with the existing conservation easements that are already out there, because they wouldn't, enable such an activity, because that would be inconsistent with the terms of the easements. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but otherwise, we've expressed why we think that this is not a proposed use that would be supported unless the municipality is going to completely, require a class 5 paved road that, provides, public safety. And that would, of course, terminate the very effective recreational uses that are out there. Thank you.
Can I make one more note, sorry?
Yes.
Sorry. Just to expand a little bit on the recreational uses, I think, one, the Kingston Trailblazers, which is the snowmobile.
Could you please state your name
Oh,
for the record?
I'm sorry, I'm Deborah Gord. I'm the Stewardship Director with Southeast Land Trust.
Thank you.
Thanks. So the Kingston Trailblazers, which is a local snowmobile club, uses that Class 6 road right now. It's a main connector from the trails in the north part of Tucker and French Family Forest, which is our 600-acre property right there, and the southern end. If they were to even have it as a driveway that they're plowing, they would completely disconnect the trail system that the snowmobilers use in this area. We also had a lot of complaints about people utilizing the forest, especially during COVID, and complaints from neighbors on Class 5 roads that were dirt roads. Phil can probably talk to that. I think on Tucker Road, with people parking on the public road. So if the road is improved, we already have ATV issues on the property. There are going to be more people super excited for an improved road driveway to go down, conflicts with the residents, people parking on the side of the road. We don't have designated parking areas. We don't want designated parking areas. And then in addition, that property is covered by a conservation easement that's a federal wetland reserve easement. As Evie said, there are endangered species out there, which is one of the primary reasons this property was protected. There's also federal, so that's the USDA has an easement on that. There's also grant restrictions from the US Fish and Wildlife Service, Any impacts, either from drainage or easements, which we would not allow on any of our property, will be not looked kindly upon by the federal government, and we would have to work through processes which we wouldn't even ask them to do, because we don't really want it to be upgraded.
Okay, thank you. Any additional public comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment number 1. We have committee liaison reports. I will start with Ellie.
I don't have anything from last week. I didn't have anything other than the deliberative session, not that that wasn't anything. It certainly was something. But I will be attending the Seabrook evacuation training drill on Wednesday of this week, representing the board.
Glenn?
I have nothing to report, thank you.
Okay. I have
Oh,
nothing.
of course, I reserve the right to jump.
Planning board, I'll be meeting tomorrow. Is it? Tomorrow,
Oh,
maybe?
I do have
No, next
something.
week? I can't remember. All right.
I do have something.
Of course you do.
Of course I do.
Go ahead, Ben, and then I'll go.
Okay. Just so that the board is aware, some past, so to say, previous work on the roof of the Nichols building might have been done, perhaps not to the quality that it needed to be. And so we're investigating and getting our paperwork together to see if there's a way to get that fixed. And I think that's all I'll say at this point. Director of Public Works and the chair of the Heritage Commission and I have met twice on this issue now, and we've also alerted town council just in case we need to take any action in that respect. So I'll keep you posted as things go along.
I have a few things. Kingston Days meeting is the 15th here at 6 o'clock, and we're hoping that we have more turnout than we did last time and that we could get a steering committee. I know that the prior chair will be providing the final report of all of the numbers. It took a while to get all of that stuff done, but we'll have that. And TBD if there's going to be a Kingston Days this year.
So when do we reach the fish or cut bait point?
The 15th.
That's it?
That's
Okay.
it.
Okay,
We won't have enough time.
exactly, right.
Right. We can't hold another meeting. And even then, it's going to be pushing it, trying to get everything
I
together.
would think so.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So that'll be it. It's kind of a drop dead date, right? A do or die. The internal fairgrounds working group, we're going to meet again on the 7th. And that's at 6 o'clock. So again, that's just to determine what we can do with the fairgrounds. So there's 6 or 7 of us just kind of throwing ideas around and doing some research. We hope to have something to bring to the select board in a few months. And the newly formed transportation study group, we have 2 meetings set up for February, the 22nd and the 27th, both to be held at the library. I'm going to mix it up, but one's at 11:30 and then the other one's at 6:30 at night. So those are both at the library. That's all.
Okay, great. Old business. So the website upgrade says options pricing. I didn't see it in the packet. Okay.
It's still not in there.
Okay. It says
I
it's in the
still haven't
packet.
heard back from the one company, and I just haven't had the time to chase them down. I hope
Okay.
to have it by the end of the week.
Okay.
Next time.
Select Board Facebook page, Adam would like to discuss.
This will probably be a bit more abbreviated because I did touch base with Lori. It was just, there was talk about, unless I misunderstood this, in which case, apologies, like having a committee and looking into things and doing a lot of work on a town Facebook page. And just when we were setting up the last Facebook page, I already looked into a lot of things. So I just wanted to offer and see if we could not short circuit, that's the wrong turn of phrase, cut out some of the work that I'd already done. And that's just what I wanted to talk about initially. There was going to be more, but I've talked to Lori about that, and we're going to interface on that, I think. Yeah.
Right, it was just going to be me looking into it, so we talked after the deliberative, and Adam and I are going to get together and talk about possible content, just how to set it up, and then we'll present something to the select board on how we want to move forward with that. So we'll meet offline and have something at a later date.
And there was, if I can have half a second, I talked to Ellie about this, and actually I think I talked to you about this too. All of the old sound equipment was on the stage. They've removed it because they're cleaning up the stage. I am almost positive it's worth nothing to anyone. It's old, it's useless. I don't like to throw anything out without clearing it with the board first. So if you want to look through that, I know, Ellie, we had talked about making sure, but I wanted to seek the board's pleasure on that one.
I would suggest talking with Phil over at DPW, only if we can get like maybe electronic recycling, move it out that way. I mean, if it's useless, there's no sense in storing it. That's silly. But let's get rid of it maybe through some electronic recycling.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. An update, the point of entry treatment systems. The bid package has been completed by Verdantis and it has been submitted to DES. So we now just have to wait for DES to say that, yes, this is an appropriate RFP and meets all the requirements before we put it out. So that is continuing to move forward, albeit slowly, but it is moving. We have the Verdantis contract for our MS4 consulting, and we do have the multi-year language that was added in there. And this is, I had talked earlier when we discussed about multi-year contracts, so we just wanted to make sure that we had the appropriate language in there to be granted. So have we previously voted on this?
You did not vote.
Okay.
Have we made Verdantis aware of this?
Phil took care of it, so I believe so. Are they aware of the change in the language, Verdantis? They did, okay.
Then I presume they are aware.
Okay.
Okay. So we're just looking at, we're just year 7 and year 8, correct? Yes. Okay. So we need a motion to approve the Verdantis contract for year 7 permit as well as year 8 total of permit assistance. Total year 7 cost is $24,700. So $24,700.
And with the addition of
the multi-year contract.
Multi-year language.
Yep.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think it's in the orange folder to sign.
Okay, new business. We have the New Hampshire DOT purchase offer on 37 Route 125. This is map R2, lot 1. We had 2 offers in the packets, and I know Phil and Susan had some information on this to share.
Yep. Yeah, the 2 offers are, one is for the part they need to take, and the other is what would be left, which they will buy for, and I forget which was what, one is 500, one's 400.
Obviously, it's going to be a whole meeting to decide where you're going to spend that money. So their minimum is $500. They were only going to give us $400 for the part they needed, but they bumped it up to 5 as their minimum, and then I kind of questioned why we needed this little postage stamp in the middle, and then they offered us $400 for that. So I did inquire about the timber value. They said they would not pay anything for the timber value, but if we wanted it, we could take it. So I will probably take some of the crew out there for some chainsaw training and I'll check with Marissa to see if anybody needs some firewood. Or I think there's a couple white oak logs that we might be able to use on that building. I can mill them up, so I just don't want to give them to them out of spite, so.
And just for anyone that hasn't heard the previous discussions about this, this is a piece of property that DOT really needs to take for part of their expansion and allowing the safe access to the adjoining road. And there is no significant or there is no value to maintaining this piece of property. There's nothing that it could possibly be used for in the future as well for the town's use.
Right, and this is related to the Route 125 upgrade.
This will be the new entrance for what is now Colonial Road.
Right.
Colonial Road is a U off of 125 at the moment. Both sides of it will be abandoned. This new intersection will be across from the Fieldstone Meadows development. It'll be a T intersection, and that will actually be now known as the Happy Hollow Road. It will be extended to 125. Colonial will just be a dead-end offshoot of Happy Hollow. And it'll have a T-bar intersection at the end so people can turn around. But it should be much, much safer and a lot easier to plow, so looking forward to that.
Okay.
Always looking for that.
Yeah, of course.
So are we looking at two separate parcels?
Two. So
two offers,
yes.
one for 400 and one for 500.
It is one parcel. There is an offer for the piece they are going to take, and then there is an offer for the piece that we're left with. So we don't want
$900, right?
You still have the option of keeping that
Our revenue from this is $900. Is that
pure
correct?
profit.
Huh?
Pure profit.
What?
Unanticipated revenue.
Yes, we might have to have a meeting to it.
And the amount of land is less than half an acre in total.
It is. It's a hillside. It is completely unbuildable,
Yeah, let me
unusable
just,
land.
so let me state the motion. We would need a motion to agree to accept $500 for, in full satisfaction for all the damages incurred for the required taking for highway purposes with all rights of access, air, light, and view appurtenant thereto, and to execute when tendered a deed and easement right-of-way entry to the state of New Hampshire for land affected by said highway shown on the plan entitled Plastow-Kingston 10044E of the Department of Transportation. And the acquisition is for a 65 square foot drainage easement and a 1,010 square foot slope easement on 0.19 acres remnant. And this is needed for a project, so I would take that as a motion.
With the amount of $500?
For the amount of $500.
To the town of Kingston?
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on this one? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Second would be a motion to agree to accept $400 with the same language for the plan entitled Plastow-Kingston 10044E to the Department of Transportation. And this is the acquisition of 0.30 acres of uneconomic remnant land in fee simple, otherwise known as the piece that is left. And that would be for the sum of $400 to the town of Kingston.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so I guess I'll just sign this.
There might be a more official copy in that blue folder. I can locate for you before the end. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, under new business, human resources, approve sick time bonus for 2023, and we have information in our packets. So, just so folks understand, this is for folks that don't use any sick time during that calendar year.
Yeah, so last year's was brought to my attention that we have been paying out a bonus for people that don't use all their sick time. And it wasn't an official like policy, but it's been paid for, I look back since 2004. So last year, we had to do it. This year, I didn't do it in December because the first 2 pay periods in January are still December dates. So I had to wait to see if anybody took time off. And it totals, as you see, the gross is $3,132. And the net is $2,550. So for the first, if you take 0 to 8 hours, you get $150. For 9 to 15 hours, $100. 16 to 36 hours, you get $50. If you take more than 36, then you don't get anything. And so for this year, what I'm proposing is that we maybe not give the salary people this bonus because we don't really need it for sick time. Like, we don't use sick time really. So that would reduce it, but I think going forward, we shouldn't really do it anymore.
I've got to say that I can't believe this is happening. And, sorry for town employees who might be hearing this, but I don't know what to say, but I don't think it's right.
And I never liked it on the teacher contracts. I certainly don't like it here, especially for full-timers. I think, there might be something we might want to consider for part-timers. I think we're obliged to pay it this year, but I really want to see it minimized or eliminated for 2025.
That was my thought as well.
And I'm in the same boat. I think there's, that they weren't going to get this, it's been paid out. I think it needs to be paid, but in my opinion, the only good thing that came from COVID-19 was the fact that it was no longer a badge of honor to be sick. If you're sick, you should just stay home. So I don't want to do anything that incentivizes people to come in and get other people sick because they want $150.
I agree. When I read this, I was a little surprised something like this existed. And I think it does reward you for coming to work sick. Not to say $150 is a lot of money, but it could be like you get the perfect attendance award when you're in school, and it's kind of the same thing. And
it's like a participation.
It really
award.
is, and I don't think that we should do this moving forward. We should pay it for last year, but then this is it moving forward.
Correct. I'd be in favor because employees weren't notified that it was going to discontinue, but I would move that I'll move that we authorize the payment of the sick time bonus list in accordance with how it had been previously done for at least 20 years for 2023. And then I'm going to make another motion after we vote on this.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor for the paying of the 2023 sick time bonus list? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. My other motion will be I make a motion that we discontinue the sick time bonus practice for the town of Kingston.
Second.
Any further discussion? Correct. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's not enough money, well, I shouldn't say that.
Well, here again, tough budget times, and on a per-person basis, it's not a huge amount of money, but you look at the bottom line, it's $3,000. And anyway,
we've taken a lot of heat advocating for other things to get them paid appropriately, to maintain cost of living increases, and fight for them to maintain certain levels of benefits for health insurance and those things while still protecting the town. Something that I think incentivizes something that is improper, especially in this day and age. I will not lose any sleep over this.
I agree.
Okay, what am I at now? Finance approved donations to the town. Is that in one of these folders?
It's right, it's listed right on your agenda.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure if there was another document. So we need approval to, we'll take a motion to accept a $100 donation to the police department from Claudette Chambers. We'll have to take all these as separate motions.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We need a motion to accept a $250 donation to the police department from Rowell Estates Condo Association.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we need a motion to accept a $250 donation to conservation from Lucius and Rhonda Fowler.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Next item we have is the Friends of the Kingston Library request for a flyer to be placed in the tax bills.
That's me, Phil.
They both wear a hat.
Yeah. Yes, the Friends of the Library would like to put an 8.5 by 11 insert that meets our requirements in our June tax bill. They're looking to generate new members. The Friends as existing are aging nicely, I might add, but I'm still having low turnout at some of the meetings and want to use a little bit of a flash with that tax bill to get more participation. Tammy has a list of rules and Susan has that as well, and it will definitely abide by all the restraints, but it is a single sheet, 8.5 by 11, probably two-sided, I don't know yet.
And we typically can do up to 2 inserts per tax bill, right, without affecting the postage?
I believe so.
Right, for a total of 3 sheets of paper.
Oh. Only 1?
But it doesn't increase postage, it just is more manual. So we could do 2 inserts, it's just manual. Okay.
All right. This is a non-official town organization looking to use an official town resource and platform that may need to for other official town purposes to send forward. I think it's a fantastic organization. I want them to be able to get their word out. But authorizing it to be placed on our tax bill to limit the access to other town departments that may have pressing needs that come out for that tax bill that we really need to be advocating for to get out to our taxpayers and our residents, I think it is inappropriate use of our tax bills and the mailing and taking up that space which may be needed for other departments.
Well, do we have a deadline? I mean, we're gonna, if we say no to the Friends of the Library, and I appreciate what you said in terms of the town.
And I've said no a lot to the Friends of the Museum on stuff. And I have to treat them, I have to treat organizations that are not official town things, I have to treat them the same.
So if
Have we
there's,
said no before? I'm sorry, Laurie. Have we said no before to anyone, even though it's town related?
I don't know if it's been said no to the flyer, but I view it as similar circumstances.
so are you saying, Chris, that if an official town notice needs to go in it, it would bump that? But what if there's nobody else that requests to put into the tax bill? Could they then do it?
We'd like to, as we typically do.
And I guess I don't even, and I wouldn't, and I don't want to open the door for non-official, because then it's going to be, as soon as the tax bill goes out, well, we want the placeholder to be first in place if the town doesn't need anything, and then it feels like we're playing favorites to potential organizations, not an official town capacity. Like I said, it's not that I don't want organizations to get supported and be their voices out, but I have taken a certain stance on items related to this type of stuff, whether it involves private detail requirements for nonprofit organizations versus official town stuff, and I've taken a hard line on that. So I know this seems silly, but I have to take the stance that our official town departments, that space should be reserved for our tax bills because it's important information folks need.
So the Solid Waste and Recycling Committee was the first one to put a flyer in with the tax bill, and the guidance that we received, I believe it was from NHMA, is that it needs to be nonpartisan, non-revenue driven things that are just informational purposes from the town. And that was the guidance that they had given. And in all seriousness, we do the recycling committee would like to have another flyer in there. It's one of the best ways we can reach people. So.
Membership solicitation count as a revenue generating prospect? Because I mean, I could say, all right, let the friends could make up the flyers and wait to see if anyone besides the highway department wanted to put something in. We could always hand stuff the envelopes ourselves if we needed to put a second insert in. But given the phrase non-revenue, it's not revenue to the town, but if we generate membership, it's revenue to the friends. It's $10 a year, by the way.
I mean, you're advocating, the town is sending out an item that's advocating membership to one particular organization and not allowing it evenly allowed to any beneficial organization that does good things for the town, but is not under the town's purview.
So I'm going to move that we do this because I'm going to have to tell my colleagues on the Friends of the Library what the results are. So I'm going to move that we authorize the Friends to, allow the Friends to put an insert, assuming it's the second insert after the Highway Department for the June tax bill, with all the restraints that go along with it.
I will second it so you can have a vote, but I will tell you that I will vote against it.
I'm guessing that.
Can I, the RSA that Tammy gave me, just so you know, I mean, it says other town or city bills or information directly related to municipal business along with the tax bill. So it's not only about making money, but I mean, I think it's supposed to be directly related to municipal business, the way I'm reading this.
And the thing is, because these organizations, we don't have any oversight over them, we can't control what they may dive into. So we can't guarantee that it's always going to be official town business or directly related to town business for their organization.
The select board would have the opportunity to preview, just like we would on the cable, any news release, all that stuff is pre-approved anyway. So you'd still have those same safeguards as to what goes on there and who it was paid for, very much like a political advertisement, although it's not political.
Further discussion?
Well,
I don't know what you guys
I'm hoping not to get a tie vote on this.
Well, it fails if it is.
I understand. I'm going back to the concept of if, and I realize there's already been one request for a flyer or for a piece to go in. If there were an opportunity for a second piece and there wasn't town department that was wanting to put something in and there was still space for another flyer, would we allow the Friends of the Library to take that spot, since they have made the request?
So having heard what Phil said and then having listened to what Susan read, I would say no, because then the town is, just by virtue of it being with the tax bill, then you are, I don't know what the right word is, you're endorsing a particular thing. Regardless of, you know, what the good things that they do, people are going to take it as an endorsement. So I don't think that's something that we should do.
And I get it. Some of these organizations that I have told no while sitting in this seat, I have then made myself and my family have made private donations. We've showed up and participated in their events, but I can't allow it to be supported from this seat and the town's platform on certain items.
I understand, I really do, and I know my friends and the Friends will understand as well, but I had to ask.
Am I still going to be allowed to play cribbage?
The only way, still flag cribbage. I wanted to ask, because if it's available and we can do it, we should do it.
So I'll move the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion does not carry.
I love you all.
I'm sorry to be the bad guy that brings this stuff up.
Okay, that's all right. It's been a lot of work.
Okay, so we have some information here on welfare maximum allowable levels. Please approve. Is this just writing a format of what they already exist at?
I
or
don't
they are
know.
an increase?
We just approved the manual, so
Yeah,
I
she
don't know
just-
what this is.
she just sent that to me in an email and said she wanted you to be aware that I think it is what you already agreed upon, but it's set in.
Yeah, so I guess
maximum
before I
levels.
offer any decision on this, I would like to know that it is currently the standards, because if there were any increases in the standards, I'd want to have some discussion.
She didn't say there was any change, she just said,
Oh, we need to find out.
yeah, if you want more
If we could
information, we'll just
verify
hold
that
it.
before we
Yeah, because
offer
it
any
was
formal
not
approval,
clear
I
to
feel
me
more
either.
comfortable.
Right, and so this kind of actually brings up any policies that are currently in the town, the way they change, we procedure on how to update them, and it's not via email, and it's not, here's a piece of, we established a procedure on how to do that, so everybody gets to review it. Because, let's try to get a lot of the discussion, done, and then we can discuss it, and so I just want to reiterate that we need to make sure, we all agreed that we needed a process on how to do it, and to date, nobody's following it. So we need to get better at that, okay?
So we will take no action on that right now. Additional board business, we have our town report draft, approvals for our dedication, our cover, and the memorial are in the packets. if
Those were just the
everyone's had a
pieces that we had some discretion on, so I just wanted you to review before they're final.
And I read through it when I first got here. I'm comfortable with everything.
Yeah, I think you did a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
If there's no further on that, if everyone's okay with that, we can have Susan move forward with.
So I get the rest of my pages, I can
Yeah.
wrap it up. A few things still missing.
Okay. Public comment number 2.
We know now.
Just a couple things for the Public Works Department. There was a resident complaint to the school regarding a bus pickup on Route 111. It started a couple weeks ago, but it was forwarded to me this morning, and people who wanted to make a decision on it. So the intent is for the bus to now come down Washington Way off of Route 111 and turn around. I got a call from the school on this because that's a pretty heavy vehicle that will now be going down a side street that is not built for that. And I just wanted to run it by the board to let you know that that will most likely result in long-term damage to the road, but it is a very hazardous situation that needs to be addressed because it's basically on the rise of 111 there. If anyone's driven that road.
That's my present.
Yes. It's a bad place for a school stop, so.
Yeah, and, when that subdivision was approved back in the 80s, part of the design by the state DOT input was for that rise to be cut down so that you wouldn't have all that sight distance problem. And when the development got built, the road never got reconfigured. So we're stuck with it now. But, oh, it is.
Very. I've been coming out of there and almost gotten clipped quite a few times. And so I just want to make the board aware of that. I certainly am not going to stand in the way of that change. It's just going to affect our infrastructure. the stormwater contract, one thing I wanted to just point out on that is our initial quote from them was 39,000 or more, but Lisa and I did a pretty substantial review of the process, and we're taking a lot more things in-house. So that's basically a time and materials contract. We're trying to bring a lot more of that under the Public Works Department so that the engineering firm isn't doing that work, and it's saving the town quite a bit of money. So just wanted to speak to that as you were signing that this evening. 16 February, which is a Friday before President's Day, we're going to be removing all the ceiling tiles in the offices downstairs so that we can get a full picture of the electrical and the HVAC system there. I've already spoken to all interested parties down there. I just want to make sure the board was aware. So the plan is to go after the offices close at noon. We'll be popping all the tiles. I'm going to try and get as many of the contractors run through there as I can, but President's Day would be the overflow day where anybody I can't get on that Friday will come in. So hopefully we'll have a better idea of what we're looking at for what needs to be done and start getting some hard numbers for that. The last thing is the Main Street Bridge, which has been submitted to FEMA for a little over a year now. It was going to be a widening of the Main Street Bridge, which is the outlet for Great Pond. And FEMA has sent back a list of RFIs that are not favorable to our application, i.e. it's not going to happen. We did a pretty all-hands call to get as much storm data as we could, anybody who had insurance claims they filed or anything like that, and we did get some response, but short of getting everybody to submit every bill they've had since 1986 with documented flooding, we're not going to get there in the priority list. They have basically a list of everything above 1 gets funding or goes into the queue. Everything below 1 is just basically disregarded. And with the new criteria they want to apply, that will put us below 1. That being said, this was an opportunity to have 90% of our costs covered for this, which is a great deal, but these programs do come up all the time. And part of the rationale at that time with the board was that we would proceed with the preliminary design, which is now complete, and the wetlands permitting. So what the wetlands permitting does is, if we get that done now, it's valid for 5 years, and then it can be extended for another 10 years. I have yet to see any wetlands permitting get less stringent, so this locks us in at today's standards. We do have the money in the bridge block grant, but I just wanted to brief the board on this, that it's my intention to continue on with the wetlands permitting for this, so that should more funding become available, we'll have all of this ready to go under the current wetland standards. So,
I was concerned how this was going to be affected after that huge storm system we had this winter that wiped out tons of communities. I figured that we were not going to be a priority.
I have a comment or question, not about the stormwater, but about chip and seal. And we never, I mean, we had all the residents from Pillsbury. That's the only area that we've done. Is that correct?
Well, can we finish the stormwater first?
Oh, I thought we were. I'm sorry. I apologize.
So do you need any approval? You just need the consensus to move forward with the wetlands permitting process?
It's just more for your information. That was the previous plan, and,
Okay.
and I was going to carry on with it, but I wanted to update you on our status with that and where we stood.
All right, chip
I
sealing.
took his update as an update.
All right.
But I wanted a chance for us to talk about chip and seal and whether we want to continue. I know it saved a lot of money, but we had a lot of upset residents. And as a board, we've never really talked about it at any length. So I want an opportunity. I don't care if it's maybe the department head meeting or a subsequent meeting before you do any more, because I want us to all be on the same page. Either we're gonna bite the bullet and pay more to have them done the way we've been doing them, or we're going to save money and incorporate more chip and seal roads throughout the town. But I think we should discuss it as a group.
And I would just say that, I applaud you for looking at any way to save money, but I think obviously there was nobody that was in favor of it. Aesthetically, I think it looks kind of nice, but
I would disagree with that statement, but.
Okay, but there is nobody that showed up and voiced their support of it publicly, or at a town meeting in an official forum of the community, or that was willing to. But I will say that, if that's gonna be the town's, if they're not willing to pursue ideas like that, I think the town just needs to understand that less road's gonna get repaved, and that means they could fall into further disrepair in between.
And that's exactly it. I mean, you could, if for the next road that comes up that you feel is in need of chip seal, what are the other alternatives and what is the cost difference? And if it's whatever the cost difference is, then we need to decide that same amount of money where we're cutting it from. So if we want to pave the road and it's $500,000 as opposed to $100,000, where are we going to get that other $400,000?
Well, this,
I think, I even think less road being really minimal. So I think it's more about, are we gonna do a mile of a road, or are we gonna do 2 miles and then take that money from something else?
That's correct. We're gonna pay less mileage, fewer roads. We've been doing that for years, Laurie. It's not anything new. So this year, Phil saved us some money, some substantial money. But the outcry from the residents was horrific. So.
But I would just say, I still think this falls on one of these issues. While we can say that, listen, we have taken into consideration the public at this time, I still think I would advise, I hate to say this, but, obviously I'm not going to be here soon, but I would advise that you may still need to consider those steps and provisions to take, but take them to the public, take them to the board to bring to the public, to notify as best as we can that it may happen. But I still think this, because listen, we have no idea after the increases that we're going to be seeing for the past couple of years. We may have a new budget committee that comes in and finds ways to propose significant cuts to all the budgets of the community, and this board still needs to have the authority to make those, the prudential affairs of the town, to make those tough decisions. And a lot of times it stinks. You're left with 2 bad decisions to make, and you're trying to pick the least worst one. So I don't think you can ever say that options are off the table. Try to advise, so it could be, okay, yep, this is gonna get chip sealed, or your road's probably not getting paved for another 15 years, and it'll be full of potholes and all these other things, and we're gonna go do something else. And so it may not be an option to not consider that, and it's gonna have to be played by ear every year, depending on the budget and the wishes of the town. And
I don't disagree with that. I think you're absolutely correct.
Kelly.
Sorry. I said, I don't disagree with your comments, Chris, but I think as a group, we need to revisit it, because we're coming into the spring season, you're gonna be doing that, and if we're not gonna be happy with chip seal, then we need to say that loud and clear now.
and I would prefer if we never chip sealed another road in town ever. I understand the reason for doing it, and there might very well be reasons for doing it in the future. But if we are going to do that, the outreach to individuals and property owners who are going to be affected by it, we'd have to do a much better job of that. And direct outreach, I mean, not just posting of a public hearing, but I mean, direct mail or whatever, to let them know, give them an opportunity to come in and speak before we do it. I think the experience was not a good one. So I agree with you, never say never, but if we are going to do it, I think we need to do a much better job reaching out to people who are going to be affected by it.
So I guess my big takeaway from that experience is that although I did substantially more outreach than previous people had, obviously it wasn't enough. However, I would caution you with throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. There are applications where chip seal is appropriate. I've also done a lot of research on a technique called microsurfacing, which can be done with chip sealing, that addresses quite a few of the complaints of loose stones and the texture of the road. I would strongly caution the board against outright restricting that for a few reasons. One being, at our current asphalt pricing and what we have budgeted, it will take us 32 years to pave every road in town. We're currently getting 10 to 12 years out of our main roads. That's not viable. Sorry, I'm good, but I'm not that good. I
get the message, and I'm not suggesting that we throw out the baby with the bathwater, but we need to have, you need to say, okay, the next group or several roads I want to do is this, and get people out here to one way or the other, because this is gonna sound even worse. 2/3 of our community members don't have children in schools. So they look at their tax bill and they're saying, what am I getting? I know they get police, I know they get fire, they get Susan and Tammy here at the town hall and a few other people, but they're looking at their roads. And I guess I would be remiss if I didn't at least bring it up for us to have a serious discussion about it as a board. That's where I'm going with it.
No, I'm glad that we're having the discussion. The intent was to utilize that on Ball and Rock Rimmon Road this year. Now, it is a slightly modified version of that is a different formula, so it sets up a lot quicker, and it's meant for main roads. Those two were selected basically because there's no shoulder for foot traffic on there. And it's at a point where that road, it's gonna be about $180,000 to do a chip seal on that. It would be over $550 to pave that traditionally, and we'd have to wait, and it'd have to degrade. We'd beat the crap out of our plows in the meantime and everybody's cars. It's substantially cheaper to maintain what we have, to paint the outside of your house versus waiting for the siding to rot off and then just hope that the inside isn't rotted on top of it. And look, I take all that to heart. I've worked with the vendor who did that job on Jericho and Williams Path. He has agreed to do a test subject where we're doing a microsurfacing on top of a chip seal and trying that out. And they've done that in other communities, but he hasn't done it in any communities in this area, so he wanted a place to showcase it at. Everybody I talked to who had done chip seal in their community had extreme adverse reaction to it the first year. The second year, there was some reaction. The third year, didn't get a single call. I would strongly caution against changing course at this point because it doesn't leave me many options on what I can do with roads. There are certain roads that it works on, and then there are ones that it won't. But there are other techniques that we're trying to implement as well, not nearly as unloved by the people. I will say I did get 3 calls from Jericho Road that I begged them to come to the town hall meeting. They would not, but they said, you did what the cops couldn't do. You got everybody to slow down on this road. So, so if you like, but when you do a microsurfacing on top of the chip seal, the chip seal's down for a week, and then the microsurfacing is done on top of it. That holds all the chips down. It's, as the name implies, a microsurfacing of it, but it's done in 2 lifts, so it takes a lot of the toothiness out of the chips. It, removes a lot of the concerns of the resident. Again, I did not ignore people. I went out and tried to find other means and methods to address those issues, but the storms have gotten in the way, but I'm hoping to have the finalized list of what we're planning on paving and what the intent is for this year in the next week and a half. So I would bring that before the board and we could review that and yes.
Listen, if that company needs a showcase, they can come chip seal my driveways. And I'll,
his funny story is he chip sealed his own driveway, and he had a long driveway, and his wife did not want it in the parking area right by the house. So they did it just regular asphalt around the house. And this was 10 years ago. And his wife 2 years ago came to him and said, we really should have done that the whole way through. It just, I'll say this as well. I go around at night when it's snowing. I'm the one out on the road checking to see when we launch the fleet to send them out there, and every minute I can keep them home is cheaper for us. I could not get my wheels to skid out on those 2 roads because it had such good traction. So with regards to snow and ice, it's a great thing. We don't get that as much as we used to, but it's certainly a benefit in that regard, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
I could have done this under liaison reports if I had remembered.
Oh, a second?
But it's a second bite at the apple, and it's sort of related to deliberative session, so it's kind of public comment. And it's just to clarify a statement that was made about the article for giving the select board authority to enter into a multi-year option agreement for the solar system on the landfill, the investigation of it. A question came up about, and this was right at the end of the discussion, about whether or not, if a system is going to be proposed to the voters, would it go out for RFP? And the answer was no, and that's true. But the public also needs to know that the solar committee and the town went through a pretty rigorous RFP process to select the vendor to work with. So we did that already. And the purpose of doing that was to secure a vendor that we were comfortable with and that we could move forward with through the investigative process and through the implementation process. So even,
especially since they were investing a couple $100,000 in the process.
Right, which is why we did the RFP process up front, got a reliable vendor that we were comfortable with, and then allowed them to move forward. So just to make the point that the RFP process has happened, and has, the vendor has been vetted, and so.
Okay, so we will move on to correspondence, applications, purchase orders. I'm gonna just go through them in order that they're in the folder in case they're not the same. First one we have for tonnage for treated salt. No issue. Today is the 5th. We have tonnage for an open purchase order for road salt for untreated salt. We have a general assistance for rent to sign off on. Pass these to you first.
This is the boring part,
Yeah.
everyone's leaving.
The tax map maintenance proposal for the town of Kingston. This is an ongoing contract. Yeah. So
In the budget.
Yeah, so it's budgeted for appropriately. So this is just the updated signatures required for that. This is attached to the next one. So there's at least there's 4 of us here and 4 signature blocks. Well,
I know, so drafty.
so there's that one. Thank you.
So we should leave.
We've overstayed
We have a solar energy systems exemption application. This is for 30 Church Street. It appears to have all the documentation we need for that. And Susan did put a note, if warrant article passes, assessed value of panels 24 times 500, so it'll convert to $12,000 that's exempted. And so I guess with that being said, anyone that already has the solar exemption, it will automatically convert over.
If that passes, it will convert over.
Oh, that's good. I mean, that's good. They've already applied for it.
And if it doesn't pass, it'll stay as it is.
Correct.
Right, and our assessor has said then that it would stay as it is, meaning the values will remain at 5,000 wash.
All the way around.
Yeah.
Okay. This was the land purchase offer agreement. So, again, did you think there was another formal contract or just these two? Oh, no, I haven't gone to the bullet. But do we need to sign these still anyway? Or this is, yeah, in the packets? Okay. So do I sign under payment administration, or payment authorization, or there's a block for owner, but I imagine that gets just handwritten as Town of Kingston? Yeah, so do I just sign under the payment authorization, or no, I guess that'd be them. How about I sign right under the owner's block, and you can fill in whatever else you need to be. Oh, we're gonna have this argument again? There's only one block.
Let me see before you do it.
So I figured it'd just be Town of Kingston, and then I would put.
Oh, that's super, I don't know, you're on your own.
Yeah, see, I will sign it, and you can fill it in as it needs to be appropriately. I know. So I'll do it differently on both of them. No. This was the Verdantis contract to be signed that we voted on. So I guess it only needs one of us. Passing this stuff this way, so there should be nothing else in here, unless there is that. Oh, that's all the supporting documentation for it.
Okay.
Okay.
So there's nothing to sign in here.
No, she pulled those out. Okay, so we handled the solar exemption, the tax back maintenance of Verdantis. We do need the approval of meeting minutes, both public and non-public, for January 29th and February 1st. Correct.
So moved.
Any further discussion on those? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And then we need to approve the meeting minutes from the decision day meeting. The first one. Do we have meeting minutes from the second one yet that to approve?
I have not seen anything.
Okay.
We have the first one.
I thought we had notes from that.
I think she sent out the second.
I think she sent them both.
Saturdays?
Not this past Saturdays.
Oh,
The decision day 1 and 2.
Right. It was two.
I just.
Yeah, it was a draft.
Can we? I don't have the. I don't know remember the dates. So can you just, for the next Monday, can we just make sure we have the dates of those meetings, as well as we'll have to approve the meeting minutes from our meeting as part of the deliberative as well.
I mean, she did a great job capturing, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Like 15 pages or something.
Do we have any other business as needed? If everyone's thinking about that, our next meetings, February 12th at 6:30 p.m. President's Day, the town hall will be closed, which is February 19th, and then we have a February 26th meeting at 9 a.m. That'll be our monthly department head meetings for February, and then...
Candidates night is February 21st.
Yes, Candidates Night, February 21st.
6:30 here at the town hall.
Okay.
Did you say we don't have a meeting on the...
President's Day, correct.
Okay.
So, any other business, last takers? Anything from committee liaison reports? You jog your memory, Glenn?
Anything else I might have forgotten?
We did just have some. There was the information in here from some of the different committees that Susan provided to us.
And several, not complete, but
Okay.
it's in the works. I had thought if I had enough, I'd put them in the town report.
So
along with the
I
volunteer
think it'd be great if we put that in the town report and showcase it, because even though the filing period for candidates, I mean, chances are there's still going to be vacancies on board, so people will have an opportunity if they kind of felt hesitant about signing up for a position to run for office. If there are vacancies at the conclusion of the elections, they could still go to those boards and request to be appointed to any vacancies that occur. So I think it's still good that we put all this out here.
Susan, my only recommendation when you get those is try to at least maybe bold and italicize the time commitment, because some of them are just, it gets lost in it, so if you can just, just kind of,
That's the important part.
that's what people really, they're like, how much time do I have to commit? So if you can just at least do that, like, so you don't have to reformat anything, and then that will help kind of push it out.
And I know I was told that the planning board won't have their little blurb ready for me before the end of the week. Maybe they'll surprise me. So it won't be a complete list, but if you want me to put in what I have.
Yeah, but you have those 4, and then you have the library, so, put in, and then maybe that'll, prompt other folks to get it into, so.
Don't be sorry.
I will just respond, we did receive an email asking, they stated at Saturday's deliberative session, Chris Bashaw stated that according to town council, Articles 43 was illegal and unenforceable, and that in Article 42, the voters can't direct the Board of Selectmen, they can only advise. They requested that they please be sent a copy of the legal opinions on both of those articles. So those legal counsel conveyed those to me verbally and orally. The only way that's necessary for us to cement those in writing is if it passes the town, and then we would engage her to write up a formal, but it costs the town money every time there's a call, there's a conversation, anything typing. So if it does pass and they need that in writing, town council will absolutely place that in writing. But to answer this individual's questions, it was communicated to us verbally, both prior to the meeting and as well as it was reread. Council reconfirmed their opinion and based on experience of the validity of those articles that I relayed to the public during that meeting.
So you'll send a response to that, Susan?
Yep.
Thank you.
So with that being said, we are adjourned.